Welcome to the Arable Leader podcast. I'm JP. I'm part of the team here at Arable, and this week we have a special treat for you. Earlier this year, Karl held a special book signing for the official launch of The Cave, the Road, the Table, and the Fire, which is his incredible book on leading from a deeper place and how to build a healthy cadence into your life. This episode is going to give you a window into the brilliant conversations, stories, questions, and strategies that were explored the evening of the book launch, including Karl's interview with Paula Stringer, head of production and business at BBC News, and a friend and coaching client of Karl's. You're going to love this week's episode, and as you're listening, if the themes discussed in The Cave, the Road, the Table, and the Fire spark your curiosity, we want to encourage you to pick up a copy of the book, or 2, or 10. We believe these ideas are best practice in community, and it's obviously the holiday season, so they would make incredible gifts. We do encourage you as well to form a community of like-minded people, all working on their character as the basis of their leadership. And we believe that this is the best way to engage this material, and we believe so much so that we want to offer those of you who come to us, who take this work seriously and say, I've started a group, I've put a group together, we want to offer you the opportunity to engage with Karl personally. We invite you to get your copy of the book on Amazon and then to organize a reading group. This could be a small group at your church, an invitation to your team at work, or a cohort of friends that are committed to growing their life and leadership. The first 5 of you to reach out to us with a group of 6 to 8 people or more will get a 30-minute virtual coaching session with Karl free of charge. You can use this session individually or within the context of your group. We recommend scheduling it after you've completed the book, but bring your questions, ideas you'd like to explore from the book more deeply, or maybe something you're working on that the book would apply to, that these principles would apply to, and Karl will bring his decades of leadership and coaching experience to help you find more clarity and growth. You can reach out to us at podcast@arableco.com to let us know your group, the members, and when you're planning to launch it. We hope that you love this episode and that you pick up your copy of the book and that these ideas become so meaningful to you in this holiday season.
This is the Arable Leader podcast. I'm Karl Martin, and we're exploring true, brave, kind, curious leadership, leading from your soul. So you became a leader. And the moment you became a leader, suddenly, almost magically, you were imbued with all the wisdom, all the skills, all the abilities, all the relationships that you needed to be a leader, right? Of course not. We assume that leadership is just caught and not taught. And so foolishly, we don't teach it. No wonder there's a crisis of leadership in the world, where people don't want to take on formal roles of leadership because we feel like imposters, we feel like we don't know what we're doing. Friends, I'm not here to tell you that leadership is easy. In fact, I'm here because leadership isn't easy. But I am here to tell you that leadership is worth it. If you do leadership well, it will have an outsized impact on everything around you. It'll change the world. And if you don't, the danger is that you could get to the end of your life working hard and striving and driving and then feel frustrated that nothing really changed, nothing really happened. You didn't make a dent in the world. The transformation I so desire in the world around me is the transformation that first has to happen in here. What I've discovered is that there are 4 characteristics in me and in every healthy leader that you meet, that if you can find them and then grow them, it changes everything around them. True, brave, kind, and curious. These qualities or characteristics are found in cadence, in rhythm, in pattern, in daily practice. The cave, the road, the table, and the fire. So start your morning in the cave. It's the quest of the true. Be intentional on the road. It's the way of the brave. Gather others around the table. It's the art of the kind. End your day by the fire. It's the pursuit of the curious. So here's an invitation from me to you to become the kind of leader that you always wanted to be, True, brave, kind, and curious. The kind of leader that transforms things for good.
I would like to say that it has come. It is here. This is the launch. Welcome. So before I pass off to the man himself, the author Karl Martin, aka my father, I really wanted to hype him up. I wanted to honor him. And I thought to do that, I'm actually going to read some of what our friends and clients have said about this book. And then I'm going to say some things about being his daughter and I guess working with him. He didn't know I'm going to do this, but I have the microphone. So let's hear from our friend Pete Gregg, founder of 24/7 Prayer. He said that this wonderful book burns with wisdom and warmth because its author, Karl Martin, combines one of the sharpest minds with one of the softest hearts of anyone I know. His hard-won insights have been distilled and field-tested again and again in diverse contexts over many years. In a world awash with trendy techniques to help people become better leaders, this is a message to help leaders become better people, which is really all that matters in the end. And one of our clients, Linda Yaccarino, who is the CEO of X, she said, Karl is a gift, and his guiding words have become a recurring strength in my life. He has a way of communicating that is uniquely inspirational and incredibly necessary in today's complicated world. I am grateful for him. I am sure you will be too. And yeah, I echo that. I am grateful for you, Dad. And yeah, what an honor to stand here and celebrate the work that you put in to this incredible book. And we celebrate you tonight, and we say thank you for everything you're doing. And yeah, it's a real honor to work with you. And I love being your daughter, and I'm very proud of you. So let's welcome Karl up to the stage.
Thank you. It's got nothing to do with the fact that she's got a work review coming up. No, that was so lovely. Thank you so much. I just want to do I want to do three things tonight. I want to say a few words about why we do what we do, and say a few words about the book, and then I'm going to interview my friend Paula and find out what she does as a leader. Maybe open the conversation to the floor and do some question and response, and then I promise I'll let you go in plenty of time. We have this belief that the core of the leadership conversation is a conversation about who you are, how you show up, and that you are the project. I sat in a group of younger leaders when I was a younger leader, and the guy that I'd come to hear was, I thought, a guru in leadership, and I was expecting to take notes all evening, and it was going to be amazing. And he basically just said, stand up and then draw a circle around yourself. And then if you want to sit down in that circle, you want to kneel in that circle or stand in that circle, I don't really care. But the deal is this: before you try and lead anything, manage anything, or do anything significant, attend to everything within the circle. In other words, you're the project. The transformation that you want to see out there first has to happen in here. You can't lead something you're not willing to live. You're the project. And I was totally underwhelmed by the conversation. Really? I just thought, really? I've come here for some wisdom. Actually, I was slightly offended and a little bit patronized. And then it ruined me for any other concept of leadership. It has done from that moment onwards. It's ruined me for any other concept of leadership. You're the project. Other people are the object and the subject, but you're the project. It's about how you show up. You are the force multiplier in your organization. And leadership is everything. I really believe that. I believe it's the greatest human skill. The ability to influence yourself and influence others and make a difference in the world is the most profound skill that a human being can have. And it's very personal. It's very, very personal, and it's very hard to do well, and that's why lots of people don't do it well. And it's leadership today is under attack like almost no other time in history. We have leadership crises in every arena of culture. And we can't keep repeating the same mistakes. We can't keep doing the same things. So this book is an attempt, and our business, Arable, is an attempt to address the core issues and say, what does it look like to be the kind of leader that changes the world? Let me escort you just 3.2 miles away to another church building, to Westminster Abbey. In Westminster Abbey, if you go there as a tourist, you'll undoubtedly go to the North Choir Aisle, and in the North Choir Aisle, there is a statue to a man called William Wilberforce. And that statue is, well trod. People go there often, and on the epitaph to William Wilberforce, who was a man that for 5 parliaments and almost 6 decades stood in the House of Parliament and stood against slavery and tried to repeal slavery and failed again and again and again and eventually succeeded. But in the North Choir Aisle, it says this of him: "In an age and country fertile with great and good men, he was amongst the foremost of those who fixed the character of their times." Two words really quickly, not a preach, but 2 words. The word fix and the word character. The word fix doesn't mean what it means today. It doesn't mean a super gluing or some oil in a rusty gate. It meant to set something indelibly. Character comes from the Greek meaning iron stamping tool or iron etching tool. So when we're told he fixed the character of his times, we're told he indelibly etched into culture and into society something different, something good, something wholesome, something better than was there. And it was a time that needed fixing. The late 18th and early 19th century, war, disease, famine, societal transformation was happening. And it doesn't take a lot of thinking to realize we're in the same kind of situation now. The world has changed and is continuing to change and needs an awful lot of setting, of fixing. I think all I want to say, and what I'm trying to do with this book, is say this: it is character that fixes character. It's character that fixes character. If you want to change the world, attend to yourself. If you want to make a difference, attend to the leadership within you. And so these 4 qualities: true, brave, kind, and curious. True is about integrity and authenticity. It's about your ability to know yourself and lead yourself and show up without some of the masks that you tend to carry. It's you doing a real dig and working out why you show up the way you show up and why you respond the way you respond and why you react to situations, and wanting to not continue to have that collateral damage in your life, to be totally intentional and not accidental. This is who I am. And by the way, it's not about just an Enneagram number or a Myers-Briggs profile. That's not who you are. They are helpful to help you, but who you are is as much your forming as your form. Where did I get hurt? What did I believe? What do I still carry in life? Why do I over-respond in certain circumstances? True. Brave. Brave is about purpose. Brave is about going after something. Passivity is the enemy of everything good in your life. So it's about saying, what am I going after? What am I shooting for? How am I making a difference? I have one of our clients is, let's just call them a marketing agency. And they sometimes get paralyzed with perfectionism because they're so good at what they do. And so we have this this mantra that we've developed for them, which basically is roughly ready, roughly right, go. Because they get stuck in the last 20% of every exercise, and they go round and round and round and round trying to perfect it. And what they've begun to realize is it's not worth it. It provides 1% extra for about 80% effort. And so go, roughly right, roughly ready, go.
Passivity is the enemy of everything good in your life. True, brave, kind. Kind, when I do this kind of talk in corporate America, they roll their eyes at kind. Really? Whatever. But, kind is, I think, probably the strongest of all these leadership principles. It's not nice, it's kind. And kind is both truth and grace. Kind is the ability to read a room. Kind is the ability to empathize with people. Kind is the ability to give yourself away for others. Kind is the ability to create a safe environment to have a dangerous conversation so that people could grow and develop. Kind puts that into the water. And then curious. Every day is a school day. And when it stops being a school day, we stop learning, we stop growing, we stop being truly alive. So what am I now reading that is really disrupting me? What am I thinking about that I don't agree with? What rooms am I putting myself in and tables am I putting myself around with people who fundamentally disagree with what I'm thinking so that I might be honed and sharpened and grow in my understanding? The true, brave, kind, curious. And the book effectively says it's not enough just to be true, brave, kind, and curious. You have to find those spaces every day. The secret is cadence. I've never met anyone that I admire as a leader who doesn't have a cadence to their life that they can articulate. In other words, a discipline that's created a habit, that's created a lifestyle. They show up intentionally to their world. And this is ours. The cave is the way in which you find your true. The road is the way in which you find your brave. The table is the way in which you embrace your kind. And the fire is the way in which you pursue your curious. It's these spaces, first thing in the morning, when I go at the world rather than let the world come at me. In the middle of the day, when I arrest my thinking, which has disrupted me from what I really believe and who I really am, allows me to live purposefully. It's the table where I get to break bread with my friends and I get to talk about the things that are meaningful, and I stop my life being just an echo chamber of my own thinking, and I start to have conversations and have and questioning that allows me to be fed. And it's the fire. Every experience that you have that remains unprocessed stays unlearned. Every experience. And so if you want your life just to be a Groundhog Day of true, brave, and kind, don't do the fire. But if you want to be truer, braver, kinder, and more curious, reflect, journal, forgive people, move on, change the way in which you think. The cave, the road, the table, and the fire. But at the heart of it is really challenging thought. That is that every single one of you is not just a leader, but the project. And that the world that we live in is desperately in need of people who lead from a deeper place. Like, not a shallow place, not a populist place, not a selfish place. I mean, I'm making no political comment here, more or less. But 2024 is a year in which I think it's about 50% of the world is going to the polls, right? Something like that. And you listen to the political debate, and I just think it's broken in every level. It's adversarial, it's polarized, it's populist. It doesn't feel like people believe their things enough. It doesn't feel like people are willing to put other people first. It doesn't feel like service. It feels like a whole bunch of other conversations that are going on. We need these kind of leaders. This is a book that might help you think in, I was nearly said this is the book, but that's because I've been hanging out in America a lot. So this is the book, change the world. But no, I believe this is going to be really helpful for some folks. So if you'll indulge me, I'd like to read something from the book, and then I'll invite Paula up, and then we can have a conversation, and then you can have some more alcohol, because we bought an awful lot of it, and it is a Thursday night, so it's nearly the weekend. So this is just a few sentences early in the introduction. George Fuchsel, an early IBM programmer and trainer, popularized the acronym GIGO to describe the limitations and the power of a machine. Garbage in, garbage out. I'd like to offer an alternative to describe the limitations and power of a leader. Hi-ho. Health in, health out. What is in is what will out. The project is you, not your skills, not firstly, not your strategies, not the newest idea from the latest leadership playbook, not your doings, but your being. This is a book about you, and about you making some commitments, some agreements with yourself. The cave, the road, the table, and the fire is a pattern for this project, a beat for your days. Not a rhythm you have to march to, but a groove that you can find. Leaders who find this kind of groove have a competitive advantage. They own the future. I know this is difficult stuff, but stay with me. Draw a circle, take responsibility, make agreements, keep agreements, find your groove. In this book, we will consider what it means to lead from your soul. Not from the value statements or playbooks, but from a deeper place, from the core of who you really are. And we will consider how to care for and maintain that place. This is for you, and then it's for them, all of them, those who will be impacted by your leadership. You are the project. It's just 4 words, but it might just be a life sentence. It's just 4 letters, and it might be the point of the project. Hi-ho. And if you want to hear any more, you have to buy the book. I'm not joking. I'd love to introduce you to Paula. Paula, do you want to come on up? You can, if you've done your homework, Paula. Paula and I have actually just spent the day together because I was... Paula, tell people where you work and what you do.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. I am the head of production and business for BBC News at the moment.
At the moment?
Don't mean I'm moving on. I mean, I've done that for the last year, and before that, I was the CEO for Christians Against Poverty, and before that, I was the controller of sport for BBC Sport and other things.
So, and we've just spent the day together because I was doing some stuff with your guys.
Yes, thank you. It was very good, by the way.
Thank you.
I was relieved.
So tell me, in your job, you obviously lead and you see leadership going on, and you have, I mean, we all have important jobs, but your job has influence in a whole bunch of areas. What do you see when you look out and you see, what are the biggest challenges facing your leadership today in the BBC?
There are, I mean, if I'm going to get specific about who I'm working with and, if you like, the leadership team that I'm working with at the moment, I mean, just to give you some context, just around kind of what we do and the scale of it. Obviously, BBC News is a global operation. So my job spans the UK and overseas, and there's like 200 different countries, and there's 300 million people internationally that consume the content that we create. And I'm not a big deal, by the way, but it's a big deal because we're one of the few organisations, whether you like BBC News or not, that genuinely want to pursue truth, even if we don't get it right all the time. And the leadership team, therefore, and the senior leadership team, I think are really, really, really important in terms of who they are, what they are doing, the clarity that they bring and where they're driving. And I would say that the biggest issue that we're dealing with in news at the moment is probably similar to a lot of other organisations, and that is that there's so much change happening at such a rapid pace that the chaos outweighs the clarity, and therefore there is priority overload, and it's really, I mean, we've got a lot of people that are falling over constantly, and you're talking about health in particular. Health is a problem. health in leadership that then drives very unhealthy behaviours underneath. And that's, I would say, that is our biggest problem at the moment, is burnout on a number of levels. Because with burnout there drives burnout here.
Okay, and we've worked together for a number of years without wanting this to be an advert for Arable and what we do. Is there anything that we have said that stayed with you and has been useful to you?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to be asked by Karl to do this, and you don't know me, but I am very, very straightforward, and I'm a northern girl who says, I try to, say how it is, but I try to be kind too. Just adding that in, because obviously. But this is an opportunity for me, in a sense, to thank you for the work that you have done with me and for me across the years that we have worked together. I met Karl when I started my journey with Christians Against Poverty and running that organisation, and had been a senior leader at the BBC for many, many years. But what I learned, in a sense, in the 5 years that I wasn't at the BBC, a lot of that through you and your influence and just speaking truth into my life, in a sense, it profoundly changed me as a leader, but more than that, me as a person. And I'm going to give you some examples. So working at CAP was both a dream job for me, because I'm really passionate about that cause, and it was also the hardest 5 years of my life for a number of reasons, personal reasons, difficult family stuff going on, and the fact that this was a really, really difficult organisation. Culturally, I'd taken over from John Kirkby, amazing guy, inspirational, lots of reasons. And so we had a lot of cultural legacy to try and change. And the truth is, I had no idea how to do that. And you came along and said, these are the things that you actually need to focus on. And I was guided down a path that I didn't know I needed to be guided down. And I can't tell you the difference and how grateful I was for that. But the biggest change for me was a personal change towards the end of my leadership in CAP. And you made a difference to the whole of the senior leadership team, because they spent, away days and, consecutive days away, really speaking leadership stuff to us. But for me, I got to close to the end of my time at CAP, not knowing that was close to the end, because I was going, I love the cause. I'm passionate about what we do. I really want to see impact and make a difference, but I am really not finding any joy in this. And one of the key things, and obviously you've written about it since, but you spoke into, this is how I learned this before I even read the book through you, is understanding that what my gifting is and what I value and what drives me is not necessarily, if the triangle doesn't add up, if I'm not, joy doesn't necessarily come if you're not using your gifting right, or what the way that God put your socks on, and kind of like making sure that you've got almost like a triangulation, and you can explain it in a minute because I'm not doing it very well.
So much better.
I know. Can you do that in a minute, and I'll just finish my story, and then you can tell them what I'm talking about. But basically, You made me, and you didn't make me, but and it felt like made, because I'm not very good, and I'll say that I'm not very good in the cave. When you're having to do a lot of self-reflection and really dig deep and go, what do I actually value? What am I actually really good and passionate about? And what really drives me? I didn't know the answer to any of those questions. I genuinely didn't. And not only that, I didn't find it comfortable. Because what that actually through this very difficult process, which was incredibly painful, was that the reason I wasn't happy was because I wasn't actually doing the things that fulfilled me and was actually acting within my own, if you like, gifting. And that's been very profound for me, because that drove me to go, we were just about to launch into, new vision. Well, we've done the new vision, another, 5 years, strategic aims, all of this stuff. And I'm going, I can't commit to another 5 years because I know that that's not good for CAP and it's not going to be good for me. And that changed the course, effectively changed the course of my life and why I'm now doing what I'm doing. And that's a really, for me, obviously, it literally is life-changing. But that's what, this part of, your legacy for me has been to fundamentally drive me to open a door where I believe I should be. And I'm so much happier.
I love that. That's brilliant. Paula, I gave you an early copy of the book. Briefly. Yeah. Is there anything in there that has jumped out at you that's been helpful for you in this new journey that you're in?
There are a number of things. Trust and how important that trust is. And a lot of it is, again, about you personally being credible and personally being reliable and personally being relatable, and it not being about myself. So not only, I've literally taken this into my own team, my sort of senior leadership team, and I kind of assessed my own team as well as assessing myself on this equation that you kind of put in the book around, okay, is my production executive there, are they good at their job? Yes, they're credible, they've got the skills. Yes, they do what they say they're going to do. Are they relatable? No, they're really prickly. But, they're not in it for themselves. So they've got, just kind of trying to almost like assess where my own team is. When I first walked in last July, you can usually tell pretty quickly, where how you feel about the people that you're going to be working with, and which bits you probably need to dig into, and that's one example. There are a number of examples. The clarity around being clear about what the overall vision is, what your goals are, what they should be, what your roles are, what your processes then. There's a kind of like a formula and a cadence that if you don't get the cadence right, and I think that's true in our personal lives, as you said, as well as on a corporate level, if you don't get things in the right order, you end up in a mess and in chaos. And, I'm seeing some of that work out within the senior leadership team that I'm working in, and trying to now influence that for change because of what I now know. But I didn't know this. I'm not going to lie. This is stuff that I learned through my interactions with you. And, I read through this book, and it wasn't the most comfortable read because it forces you to, if you're going to do it and reflect properly. But it actually, if you do it and take it seriously, it actually leads to change, positive change. I'm genuinely. And you don't even paid me to say this.
No, you're paying me. That's how it works, Paula.
How did this happen?
Brilliant. So I thought it would be a good opportunity just to open the floor. Please, any questions that you have for me around the book, or for Paula around life and how she handles it, let's do that. And please be more. Well, why don't you? I tell you what. Here's the deal. You're in little tables. You're next to people. Why don't you turn to someone? You might know them. You might not know them, and say, "Here's a question I'd like to ask," and have a conversation about that. And then you'll maybe have the guts to ask it publicly. So turn to someone. Say, "Here's a conversation I'd like to have about leadership." Who's got a question they want to ask? Jess.
I guess I have a question for Paula about burnout that you're seeing in your organization. I was just wondering how you found kind of taking the principles from the book and applying it to your organization.
I'm not sure that it's recognised as burnout And I tell you why, because I've been through burnout. And when you've gone through something that takes you to the end and you crash out and you have to pull yourself back into it, you recognise the symptoms of burnout. And anyone that's gone through that will know and understand what I'm talking about. So I am recognising the symptoms of burnout. And I've also seen some people crash out, if you like. And I'm talking about crash out as in, right, I just, they need a few weeks off and then they come back. And so for me, trying to bring order into that situation is now, I see, as part of my job. I think that was one of the reasons I was probably brought back into the organisation. Because having gone through it, and now, again, I'm not perfect in this. There are times that I massively overwork, but I am nothing like I was. I am much more kind of protective of the space that I have. I've tried to get a better cadence in place, and I've definitely got one. However, I see my job now as, in a sense, I wrote a paper to the Chief Operating Officer that basically made me look brilliant off the back of Karl's work. Sorry, I didn't entirely attribute my brilliant words. It wasn't this, but basically talking about these, if we do things in this order, this will be the outworking. And by not doing them in this order, this is where we are. And he was, the good news is he read this and went, I totally see it and I totally get it. Moving from the seeing it to actually doing something about it is where I need Karl to come and do an away day with the senior leadership team for BBC News, because that's now the next part of the journey. But in a sense, that is, and we come back to please bring some clarity around what we're aiming for. What are our ultimate goals? What are we going to get to? What do we need to do over the next 3 years really clearly so we can then build off those things and then put the right people in place and get the right processes and structure. So, yeah, sorry.
Don't be sorry. That's great. Anyone else?
Please, what would be some advice to your younger self?
I think that I have tried to avoid failure since I was young. I think I saw that as the most negative thing. And if I failed, obviously I probably knew that I wouldn't die, but that my emotional response was quite extreme. I think internally. No one would have known that externally. And actually, if I had understood that, and again, I can give attribution where it's due. I've gone through some shocking failures. My husband and I owned a business, we've been bankrupt, Anyway, there are a number. If you want to talk to me about failure, I am a failure. But what I have learned through that was more valuable than anything else. And if I could have understood that and embraced that when I was younger, I would have saved myself hundreds and hundreds of sleepless nights. Hundreds and hundreds. It's the best thing, and it's the most awful thing. I'm not saying it's like, hurrah, I failed, but recognising that it's okay.
Yeah, we were talking today with your guys around, learning to fail is a skill and an art, and actually creating a culture where it is not just okay to fail, but we're actually pushing some good failures. Yeah. We're going after some stuff that probably won't work, but you're going to learn a lot in this. You're going to learn what not to do and how not to do it. And also, we have grace for that because it's learning. It's how you do. Obviously, there's bad failure and there's good failure. Oh, yeah. Amy Edmondson, I think, has just recently written a book on 3 different kinds of failure. And that there is stupid failure. Stop doing that. If you keep doing the same thing again and again and again, that's bad. You get fired for that kind of thing, right? But then there's really healthy failure, which is the pushing of the boundaries, the continuing to wonder, the continuing to be curious about life, having a go at things, never ending exploring. Every day's a school day kind of failure. Let's have a go. And one of the things we were talking about today was how we tend to lose wonder as we get older, and how that is a curse on us. There is something about the childlike attitude, the childlike faith, not childish, but childlike, which enables us to be fearless, enables us to go after things, enables us to dream and be the people that we were created to be. So, yeah. Maybe take one. Yep, Stephanie?
Is it important, and if so, why, Karl, that the spaces or the rhythm is in that order? And the corollary to that question is, what is the difference between the fire and the cave? And also part of that question is, do we start the day in the evening or in the morning?
That's a really good question.
Great. Let's start with the last part of that question. As you know, and why you're asking the question, is that in the Jewish faith and in the Celtic spirituality, the day begins at sundown, not at sunrise. In other words, you work from rest, you don't rest from work. So there is a posture and an attitude where that is really healthy. There's part of me that wants to say, I don't really care. I don't really care whether you start, because there are people here who work shifts and do different things, and I'm saying find a rhythm, and I don't care whether you call it the cave, the road, the table, the fire. I care that you find an intentional rhythm to your life where you show up at the world rather than allowing the world to show up at you. I care that you ask questions about who am I and can I be true to who I'm called to be? Can I plumb the depths of why I respond in certain ways? I care about the fact that the world around us is very noisy and full of, what's the word I'm looking for? Full of ways of thinking that are inconsistent with healthy lives. And they'll come at you and they'll flood your head and your heart with attitudes that are inconsistent with being a healthy leader. If you don't arrest that, and I call it the road, then you're going to show up badly at your life. I care about the fact that we don't settle for echo chamber thinking, that we don't settle for being the sole arbiters of truth in our life, and that we find trusted friends where we can tease things out and have real conversations. So I care about those more than I care about whether because I'm also aware that it's idealistic at times to believe in this busy world that I'm going to be able to sit down every night with my family for dinner and ask some really curated questions. I buy that. I totally buy that that's not going to be possible. But the impulse towards that and a desire for that and a cadence that allows that. So, to answer your first question, yeah, I do think it's important that you start in your cave. I don't actually care whether your cave is 9 o'clock at night before you go to bed, if you want to flip the timings, but I do think it's important that you build your life based on who you intentionally choose to be and who you are. I think that's really important because I see so much falsehood, fakery, masks being worn and games being played. So I think that's really important. I'll shut up now. But by the end of our time together, I'll do as they say in Scotland, a we fire exercise. So we'll do the we fire at the end of our time together. And the reason is this, and I argue this in the book. So you'll have to buy it if you want to really unpack the argument. But the argument is this: that flow, the state that we call flow, which is that state when everything aligns in your life. It's the perfect moment, it's the perfect situation, it's the time when you're using minimum effort to achieve maximum output. These are the moments that we kind of live for. It's that perfect 3-iron hit. You don't understand that, but it's the perfect. It's that perfect moment when when I'm speaking in public and you just get that drop the mic moment when everyone's listening to you and you've got everyone exactly where they need to be. It's those moments. My play on it is you don't get flow by trying to get flow. It's the law of indirect effort. You get flow by achieving cadence in your life. Equally, you don't get work-life balance by trying to get work-life balance. I would defy anyone to tell me they've sorted it. People have been trying to sort that for years. We're living in a world where work-life balance is an impossible thing to get. You get the right kind of balance by achieving a cadence that's healthy. And my proof is, if I'm allowed to have this proof, is that Watch the middle-aged male cyclist who should not be wearing Lycra. Okay, so watch him at the lights when he's clipped in and he can't quite hold his balance and he looks like he's going to fall over and the wind's coming and the lorry's about to go past him and he's about to fall over and it's very, very vulnerable. Now watch him as the lights go green and he starts to cycle in a cadent rhythm. He gets momentum and it starts to go. He's got balance and he's got flow. It's the far side of cadence. So that's what I'm trying to create. I'm trying to say there are spaces that can be found that can create a healthy life. That was a very long-winded answer to Esther, do you think that was long-winded? Yeah, okay. We'll take one more. Yes.
Hi, Paula, this is for you. What's the biggest challenge you face as a woman in leadership?
Men.
Is it men? No, it probably isn't. I think that the BBC is a particular beast because I still think that the balance of people that work there, the editorial staff are still probably, there's a balance towards male staff, and I'm on the sort of business and operations side. We run the business basically and enable the production of all of the content, and that is definitely predominantly female. And I think that there's a value gap. Now, do I think that's particular to the BBC? Probably not. I think that, I mean, it's hard to I'm hypothesizing without actually any evidence. But my biggest challenge is bridging the gap, the value gap, between what the operational running of the business, making sure that the controls, the processes, that we're negotiating really big contracts and they're really good, that the value of those things is seen alongside equally to, or at least has, the right level of value to, actually being on air with the 6 o'clock news or whatever it is. And I think that's my current challenge, is that my team definitely feel undervalued. So I'm trying to do that.
Brilliant. Last go? Yeah.
I hope I'm going to be able to explain this question correctly. But what I love about this book is the element of the work that we have to do ourselves. But there comes a moment when we want life or all the possibilities to take over. So a lot of the book, I think, is about preparing ourselves for those possibilities. But if we think we can do all the job ourselves, we're probably going to be wrong. And I'd be fascinated to hear from Paula, perhaps, and Karl, yourself, at what moment, or how does the interaction between the work that we can do ourselves, and the book is a guide for that, and the interaction between that work and then suddenly life takes over and opportunities come in a way that we weren't expecting. We think we're ready for them, but then they suddenly arrive, and that's how life is. So it's the sort of concept of agency. How much should we be doing ourselves, and how much should we then allow the world to take over?
So one of the things that in fact, everything I do is very simple. So it's very simple. One of the exercises we do with people in organizations we call CIA, because what I find is people are always trying to control things they can't control, influence things they can't influence, and they don't accept things that they have no agency over. So, you'd be staggered, like Fortune 100 companies who are spending time, energy, and huge amounts of agency trying to control the US economy, or trying to control the pandemic that's coming at them, or trying to control things that they have. And so they're anxious about things, they're putting measures in place, and actually they can't do anything about those things. So my encouragement is control the things you can control, influence the things you can influence, and pay no attention to things that you have no authority over, no power over, and no agency to change. And I think that's actually quite a healthy way to posture yourself towards life. But it's also a humble way to posture yourself towards life. One of the things that we talk about is, how do you make maximum impact in this world? I think there are 3 steps before you make maximum impact: honesty, humility, wisdom. Honesty is just recognizing that everyone in this room is broken and beautiful. And the great thing is, I'm a man of faith, but I can say that in any room and people understand it. Everyone in this room is both broken and beautiful. If you knew everything about me, you wouldn't want me to speak to you. You wouldn't. Neither, vice versa. I am a broken guy and I'm a beautiful guy. And there's this I like to think so. There's a combination of that in me, and there's a combination of that in you. Just honesty. Stop trying to pretend you're all that, because you're not. Stop trying to hide from imposter syndrome because you're an imposter. Give up. You're an imposter and you're brilliant. Both of those things are true at the same time. So honesty leads to humility. Humility, despite what you've heard from preachers, is not thinking less of yourself or thinking of yourself less. It's thinking of yourself correctly. I'm really bad at these things. I'm really great at these things. And some of the things I'm really bad at, I'm going to keep working on. Some of them I'm going to carry to my grave. I have an honest and humble assessment of myself. Wisdom, I think, is knowing what is mine to do, knowing what is someone else's to do, and knowing what is God's to do. And I think that's where we get to this point. So if I can honestly say, look, I'm a mess up, and I'm also incredibly brilliant. I'm great at certain things and not great at other things. I should do these things. Someone else should do those things, and I should leave to God or to whatever I think about God, the universe or whatever, these other things. Then I can have maximum impact in the world. All you can do is prepare yourself. Be ready. And honestly, the reason I wrote this book, and one of the main reasons that we do Arable, is because I really wish I'd known this when I was 20. I really wish someone had taught me some of these things. And I totally believe that we're all going to have to walk our own path and learn our own stuff. I just don't believe that you have to learn the same stuff. I can help you with some stuff. You're going to make some mistakes of your own. So here's some stuff which I think you. Do you want to say anything?
No, I'm good. Keep on going.
Done. I'm done.
Oh, sorry.
I'm totally done. Okay, final thought before I close us with a little exercise. Fiona, it's great to have you here.
It's just a point of clarification. Oh, sorry, I was shouting. Point of clarification, you teased us with a triangle.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd quite like to close the circle and tell us about the triangle.
Close the circle with a triangle, Fiona. Yeah, so, once again, it's really simple.
Page 83.
It's just, yeah. So, in the true, brave, kind, curious concept, you want to start with true because that's the foundation, that's the identity conversation. But most people aren't ready to start with an identity conversation because I'm not overly interested in the Enneagram or in Myers-Briggs or any. I think they're great, they're just not the truth. I'm much more interested in what you believe and where you got it from, in how you got injured and hurt and how that affects you. I'm much more interested in who influences your life and who speaks into your life. I'm much more interested in your forming than your form. So the problem with that conversation is we're going to go very deep very quickly and it's going to sound like therapy, right? So the way in which I would usually lead into the conversation is say something like, what's the point of you? I don't say it quite as aggressively as that, but Nikki, what is the point of you? Let's talk about what the point. Who knows? Hey, we can have that conversation on the drive home later. But what is the point of you? And I think that is the coming together of 3 conversations, which very simply I say, what moves you, what fits you, and what fills you. What moves you is a meaningful conversation. It's about dreams, and it's often accessed by complaints. This shouldn't be in the world, or this could be in the world, or I could make a difference here. What fits you is what's my unique contribution conversation. What do I do better than 100 people I know? Which is a really hard question to ask a British person and a really easy question to get an answer from an American. They list you 10 things. I do better than anybody else. Whereas you guys have to ask 5 people. And sorry, I've had to go at the Americans. So sorry if anyone's here in America. We live there at the moment. And then the third conversation is a what fills you conversation, which is, so the fits you conversation makes you useful. The fills you conversation makes you joyful, but it also makes it sustainable. If I can't show up and do something that fills me full of life, then I'm not going to keep doing it. Or if I have to keep doing it, I'm going to do it half-heartedly. I'm going to do it as a job I do rather than something that I actually want to get involved with. So it's the centering point, it's a centering space between those 3 conversations. And then that forms what I would call your yes. And the yes is important because you're going to need to defend it with 1,000 no's. So it becomes the way in which you filter or triage your life and say, no, I can't do that, not because it's not important or because you're not shouting at me, but this is so compelling for me, I have to keep doing this. By the way, it's not a needle in a haystack. It's not like you have to find this thing and you have to be anxious about finding this thing. It's the haystack. It's very big and it's very permissive. It's just not certain things, which I think often for us helps. And then, of course, the kicker question is, what stops you? So you've got a yes there, and I'm saying, well, what's stopping you doing it? And the answer is almost always inhibitions, not prohibitions. It's almost always you, not all the fingers you're pointing at the culture or society or your workplace or your family or whatever. It's something in you, and that drives us back to true again. Is that helpful?
Look, that's exactly what I said earlier.
Can we give Paula a big round of applause and thank you for... Would you indulge me? And I'd like to lead you in a short reflection that I do, or I try and encourage people to do as well, around the fire and how we do the fire. Now, I don't care whether your fire is an actual fire. I love a fire, by the way. Whether it's a wood-burning stove or a fire pit, or it's a candle, or it's none of the above. It's a journal. I care that it's a conversation that you have with yourself as you wrap up the day. And the conversation that I want you to have with yourself is a conversation that understands that every experience that remains unprocessed stays unlearned. So what occurred to me today that's a highlight of the day? What happened to me today? How did I impact the day? And then the questions I want, so you might want to close your eyes, or you might not. I'm not going to steal anything, but so here's the thought. What of today do I need to leave behind? It shouldn't have happened. It jarred. It hurt. It was unbecoming of me. I just don't want to carry it into tomorrow. And give yourself permission to leave it in today. What of today do you want to take with you? Because it was awesome. Because you learned something. Because something filled your bucket. Because you want to be like that going forward. And you want to remember it. Third thought. What of today do you need to get right about? What did you do that you shouldn't have done? Who do you need to get right with? Do you need to forgive yourself? Can you come to peace about it? And just in your mind's eye, make a decision to send a text, write a note, journal a journal, and come to peace. Now, your fire could be literally 3 minutes of every day like that, or it could be a whole evening by a fire. But your ability to be curious about the events of a day, and your ability to analyze them, and your ability to learn from them, will be the catalyzing factor that enables you to become the leader that you truly want to be. So my encouragement is, if you journal, journal. If you talk, talk. If you light a fire, but get a practice in your life that enables you to wrap up your days and start fresh ones with purpose and hope.
You've been watching The Arable Leader with Karl Martin. Subscribe for more episodes with great leaders. And you can also listen to The Arable Leader wherever you get your podcasts. For more resources for leading in a healthy way, visit arableco.com and check out Karl's new book, The Cave, the Road, the Table, and the Fire: